What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is officially the first vlog of 2024, and we're unfortunately kicking it off with some bummer news from 2023, and that is that KTM, in conjunction with its partners CFMOTO and its partners in Bajaj, they're moving 300 jobs from Austria abroad. I know this is going to piss off a lot of people, but there are some small silver linings to this bummer of a story, so let's dive on in. Okay, now, this is a very touchy subject. The idea of jobs, moving jobs around, it's hard to talk about because you're talking about people losing their livelihoods and other people gaining those livelihoods in other markets, and it sucks. So anytime that there is a silver lining to this story, remember that I am not championing the idea of people losing their jobs. It sucks. I've lost my job in the past, twice actually, and it's no fun. It's no fun to go to the office one day and get ready for work and then get on a phone call and realize that you don't have a job waiting for you the next day, and what you gotta go find something else to do. However, it is also worth pointing out that beyond America's borders do not live a lesser people. If you're angry about the idea that KTM is moving jobs from Austria to India and into China, do not be mad at the people who are getting the jobs. Be mad at the people who made the economic decision to move those jobs. That's just my 2 cents. Again, I want to say, beyond America's borders do not live a lesser people. It doesn't matter where. You may disagree with them, but that doesn't mean that everybody in that group, no one is a monolith. So let's try to be civil about this discussion. And in doing so, we need to talk about the specifics. So this came out, the news came out through Cycle World, I believe, December 21st or something like that, right before the end of the year, which is a horrendous time to make that announcement that people are losing their jobs. It's a really bad time to do that. KTM announced that 300 jobs will be cut in Austria, and those jobs will be moved in part to CFMOTO plants in China and part into Bajaj plants in India. So if you're unaware, KTM has partnered with CFMOTO and they have partnered with Bajaj to help produce motorcycles in their lineup. So the 390 motorcycles are made in India. The 790 motorcycles and this one that I'm on, the 800 NK, are produced in China. So the question is, why? Why did they decide to move jobs from Austria into China? I mean, KTM is a proud European manufacturer, proudly built in Austria. Why move production over there? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and the first reason is they were looking at the economic forecast in Europe, which was predicting an increase in interest rates, and it just became the economy was going to continue to contract there, and it's just a bad place to do business, or at least so they seem. And I'm not going to postulate on whether or not that's correct or not. That's their decision logic for why they've moved production overseas. It is admittedly cheaper to produce motorcycles both in India and in China than it is to produce in Austria or anywhere else in Europe. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be concerned because KTM owns a lot of different motorcycle companies. They own MV Agusta, they own Gas, and they own Husqvarna. Are those bikes going to move overseas? No. From what I've gathered, it is just KTM moving a lot of their production to China and India so that they can basically, I guess, save a little bit of cost. But it doesn't seem like MV Agusta is going to be moving. Suddenly you're going to get motorcycle art made in China. No, those are going to still be made in Italy. And it's worth pointing out that KTM is still going to be producing motorcycles in Austria. It's just they're moving some R&D, some production abroad. And the total number of jobs lost seems to be about 300, which is no small cut. That's a pretty big cut to jobs. Man, that Triumph was running rich. Holy cow. Man, when I smell your motorcycle go by for just a second, and I'm like, holy cow, that knocked me off my seat, you're really running rich. Guy needs to check his carbs. Now, there's no two ways around it. 300 jobs is a ton of job lost at the company, and a lot moved overseas, and it sucks. It sucks to hear that. And for those of you guys who think I'm just kind of talking out my butt here, my wife is from the area around Janesville in Wisconsin, and she has had either family or friends impacted by GM closing their Janesville plant. If you want to see the devastation that can cause to a local economy, look at what happened to Janesville. Janesville was destroyed by the GM plant leaving. Admittedly, that was thousands of jobs. That was an entire local economy. We're just talking about 300. But that's still a ton, and it is still going to represent a little bit of threat, because if they've done it here and it works, what's to stop them from moving more overseas, right? So that's the shitty part of this story, and I'm gonna try to play devil's advocate here. And remember, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm playing devil's advocate so I can try to find some silver linings. So first and foremost, it's important to remember that a lot of motorcycle consumers aren't as plugged in as we are. If you're watching this channel, you care a lot about motorcycles. Whether you like watching me do stuff, or you like hearing about motorcycle news, or you like reviews, you like bike. If you like bike enough to watch it on YouTube, you are more plugged in than the average rider. And the average rider doesn't want to see motorcycles continually getting more expensive year over year over year over year. So in order to save some production cost and save the consumer a little bit of money, it can be helpful to produce your motorcycles or your cars or whatever in a market where you don't have to pay as much to build it. Again, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that's the devil's advocate thing. You could theoretically pass savings on to consumers. Now, whether or not that actually happens, we'll see. I do believe that this motorcycle, which is, I think, $84.99, I'll have the price on screen, is priced appropriately. I think it's right where it needs to be. And the KTM is a little bit too expensive considering this thing exists. So if they can move production of that KTM overseas and then save a little bit of cash for the consumer, go for it. Another silver lining, devil's advocate positive here is that KTM is strengthening their relationship with CFMOTO. They're strengthening their relationship with Bajaj, and they're allowing basically further development of these platforms. So basically, they wanted to take CFMOTO from roughly 50,000 units to 100,000 units, which is awesome because it means they see growth in this brand. And I would love to see more CFMOTOs come out, because this is an awesome alternative to a KTM. It has the same KTM fun factor, but with a lot more street comforts. And it doesn't look as goofy as a Husqvarna, and it's not as neon red as a gas, you know? I like the CFMOTO bikes, and I like the CFMOTO brand, and I love that they're allowing people to get into bikes for really cheap. And if KTM can further develop this platform in conjunction with CFMOTO by moving some jobs overseas, then we may see a net positive on the consumer side. Unfortunately, that's about as silver lining-y as I can get here. That's about as much good as I can try to extract out of that. I would really prefer to see KTM continue to just build stuff in Austria, because it's part of the brand's DNA. You know, it feels weird when they offshore stuff, like Harley moving production for the street line to India. It made sense from a business standpoint, and sure, maybe a lot of people don't care about where their bike actually comes from, but if I want an American motorcycle, I want it built in the States, and I'm willing to pay that premium. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people are in that camp. They would pay the premium to have the genuine article. You know, this feels a little European, but it also feels a little bit Asian. You know, there's a little bit of the Japanese, Chinese, Asian build DNA in here. Not a lot, but it's in here. And you can feel a ton of the Austrian DNA in here, but it's diluted somewhat. Imagine if Ducati of all companies was like, yeah, we're gonna move production from Bologna, and we're gonna put it in Ohio. We're gonna build Ducatis in Ohio. That would still be really weird, you know? It would be really odd. Or they're gonna build them in Ottawa. What? And then the last thing I want to point out here at the end is the motorcycle you're riding may not be made where you think it is. Just go ahead and check the VIN code. There's a way to decode your VIN. There's a special character. I forget if it's the first or if it's the second one. That will basically be the country code for where your VIN or where your motorcycle was produced. And a lot of them are produced in weird countries. You get some in like Thailand, and some in Japan, and some in China, and some in America, and some in Mexico, but you also get some in like France, which you don't think of motorcycles as being built in France. You think of, you know, fancy cigarettes and berets and stripy shirts being made in France, but not motorcycles. But the XSR platform 700 is made in France. So I'd take a little bit of time to research actually where your bike comes from. It might be elucidating a little bit, and it might change your perspective of the quality of the bikes coming from the market that yours was produced in. Because I will say, riding this thing around, putting almost 500 miles down at this point on this thing, I have been surprised by how good the build quality is on this motorcycle for the price point. So that's where I'm going to end this one today, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you care where your bike was made? What do you think about the idea of manufacturers building outside of their home market? And do you care where it was all developed? Let me know your thoughts on all of this down below. And let's please, right here at the end, let's try to be civil about this. I know that a lot of the guys and gals in my audience lean right. I know you do. And it probably might surprise you. It shouldn't. But I lean left. So let's try to have a civil conversation about this, please. And remember, I think most people are generally on the same side. It sucks when people lose their job. And with that, I'm going to call it a day, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.